Today is Friday, which means it is shot day. So I figured I would take you through kind of my process of doing my shot, because, that could be an interesting video for some people, and it could be useful, so I hope you can get something out of this. And I did just shower, so my body's clean for my shot. So I keep all of my supplies in a little kit. I have my extra needles, syringes, and my sharps container in a drawer in my desk right now. But honestly, just like store your stuff however works best for you. The setup that I have is I have my 25 gauge needles in here. I have an extra needle that I'm going to be using this, so these are for next time. But these are my 25 gauge needles, which is what I actually use to inject myself. In this other pocket, I have my alcohol swabs and my Band-Aid. So swabs, I'm going to use one for my vial and one for my skin. I'm also just going to grab a little Band-Aid. And then this is the big zipper pocket on the back, which holds the majority of my supplies. So in here, I actually have my syringes, my 18 gauge needle, which I will need to grab one of. These are what I actually use to draw up the testosterone. And then I have my 25 gauge needle. This is a different kind. This is called a safety needle, which I will show you about. But I ran out of safety needles, so I just got regular ones. My prescription. We also have, these are just 1 milliliter syringes, but first I'm going to be using up my 3 milliliter ones. And these ones also come with a safety needle, but that gauge is too big for me to be using on my self for what I'm doing. This is the gauge that I'd be using if I was doing an intramuscular shot, but I do my shot subcutaneous, so I don't need that. So I got all my supplies gathered. So now to get everything prepped. So this is my testosterone. It is just kind of a generic brand. It's not really like branded or anything. Sometimes like people say like warming it up beforehand will make it easier to inject, so I'm just gonna like rub it between my hands for like 20-30 seconds just to make it a little bit easier, because testosterone is a very viscous liquid. It's basically they suspend it in oil, and so it's easier if you like warm it up a little bit before going at it. Most of the time the bottles that I've seen of it tend to be 1 milliliter. This is 10 milliliters, and so its like concentration is 1,000 milligrams per 10 mils, so it's going to be 100 milligrams per 1 mil. So this is a much bigger container of it than I've tend to see, but that just means it'll like last me a long time before I have to go refill it. Needle wise, my initial needles were provided through the doctor I went to. The ones I had to get afterwards, like the syringes and extra needles I showed you, I had to buy on my own. I bought them from a pharmacy. I'm in Canada right now, so each of the boxes of needles, I got 100, 125 gauge, 118 gauge. Those reach around $10, and then the syringes were a lot more expensive, but that's gonna really depend on where you are. So, just to get started, the first thing you want to do is you're going to take your alcohol prep pad, your first one, and you're going to disinfect the top of this. Basically, you're just going to make sure it's clean, that there's nothing that's going to like go in there. You just wipe it a little bit, and then set your testosterone off to the side and let that dry before you're like doing anything with it. And so while that is drying, I'm going to prep the rest of my supplies. So this is my 18 gauge needle, which is what I need in order to draw up. So I'm going to just start by getting my syringe. This is the bigger needle, which I'm not going to be using, so I'm just going to toss that off to the side for now. And I will just toss that in my sharps container when I'm done. I'm going to basically just open my 18 gauge from the bottom. Hold it from here so that way it doesn't like, basically because it's packaged like this, it's sterile, So you want to make sure you don't like de-sterilize it or whatever. I'm just gonna twist it on. If you kind of hear like once you twist it, like you'll know if it's secure or not. And from here, so everyone's dose is going to be different. I'm only like this is my 2-month mark actually. So like my dose is still relatively low, and also just my doctor wanted to start me out lower because I am younger and a smaller person. So I'm just going to pull this back to my dose line so that I have the air in there. And everyone's dose is going to be different. Some people are going to need a higher dose. Some people are going to be a lower dose to see effects. It all just depends on what your doctor tells you. Okay. But yeah, I got air in there to my line. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to inject the air into the bottle because that way you kind of are like depressurizing it. So here I'm just going to open it. So this is my 25 gauge needle, which I'm going to use to inject myself, but we're not there yet. So my testosterone has dried. So I'm just going to uncap my 18 gauge. Be very careful not to touch it, otherwise I'll have to replace it because the idea is that it's sterile. So now I'm going to poke this into my testosterone little vial. I'm going to inject the air because basically the idea is that you're changing the pressure in the container so that way it's easier to draw. I'm going to turn it. Needles in there, and I'm just going to pull it down to actually below where my dose is. Tap it to get air bubbles. I'm going to push it then up to where my dose is and just kind of adjust it to get any air bubbles out. Okay, there we go. You can overfill it a little bit, just that way you can like pull things out as needed. I'm gonna take that out. Then I'm done with this for now. Set that off to the side. And I'm just gonna check. So I still have a couple of air bubbles in there, so I'm just gonna kind of like flick them out. Okay, and then you can push it up to your dose level, and then you'll kind of get like a bead of medication forming on there, which means that you're good and you kind of got most of the air out. So I'm going to recap this. I am done with this needle for now. So now I'm going to swap out my needles. So carefully twist that off. Grab the one I prepared. And twist that one on. So you'll notice that this needle looks different than the other one. It's because it is. Okay, next step. So I do my injection subcutaneously, which means I'm doing it into a layer of fat. So with doing subq, most common places are kind of like top outside of the thigh. I do my stomach. I might change it in the future, we'll see. But I'm gonna get my second alcohol pad. I'm gonna find a place on my stomach. You're gonna go, they say like about an inch away from your belly button, at least. So I'm gonna take that spot, kind of pull my shirt up, wipe it well, make sure it's like clean. Okay. Gonna set that off to the side. Gonna let that dry a little bit. So this is what's called a safety needle because you don't have to recap it in the same way that you do the other needle that I had. Here you're going to take this part, gonna pull it down, and now it's prepped. Top comes off. This is the needle that goes into me. This is 25 gauge, which is how thin it is. The bigger the number, the smaller it is. So like a 25 gauge is smaller than the 18 gauge was. But now I'm just going to double check this is at my dose line, which it is. I'm just going to double check there are no air bubbles, which I don't think there are. Yeah, okay, and I just tested it, and there's like the little bead of medication on the tip, which means we're good to go. So now I'm going to find that spot that I just cleaned was. And if you look at your needle, there you'll see that there's like a sharp bit, and then it kind of, it's like a bevel. You want the sharp bit, I believe, on the bottom. I don't entirely remember. I just remember someone I saw on the internet talking about that. Anyways, from here, just kind of take your piece of skin or whatever you're going into, I was told just go in at a 90-degree angle. Some people for subq say 45. I just go straight in because that's what my nurse told me. 1, 2, 3. Okay, wow. Yep. Like, it doesn't hurt, but it is like something entering your skin. So it's like that. So now from here, I'm just depressing the plunger with my other hand. It does take a little bit of time because it's a viscous liquid. You just kind of hold it steady. And once you're at the end of it, you want to make sure you pull it straight out. So 1, 2, 3, whoop. And then safety needle, because you just take this and to close it, you just click it into place, and now it can't be used again. I'm just going to take my alcohol pad and wipe again where I injected myself just to clean it up. And then here's where I apply my Band-Aid. And also, I will mention before this, I did wash my hands. Don't just like go at it. Like make sure you wash your hands beforehand or like put on gloves. Yeah, from here, oh, there it is. From here, I'm just going to take my Band-Aid. And you're all set. And so from here, I will grab my sharps container. Sharps container acquired. Most pharmacies will provide these. Like if you ask, like you might have to buy them. I got mine for free through a pharmacy. And then when you're ready to dispose of them, you bring them to a pharmacy again. You don't have to use like an official sharps container. Oftentimes people use like detergent bottles. You want to make sure that it's hard plastic. And so if you look, if I pop it open, so you can see that it's kind of like a mail chute where you put it in and then it closes and you can't access them again. So this lid is like on securely, so you can't access any of the things in here and they can't be reused. So the stuff that goes in the sharps container, got my syringe and the needle, 18 gauge cap, as well as the needle that I didn't use, because it is no longer considered sterile. So from there you just close it. And then I don't have a ton of needles in here right now, but once it gets more filled up, that's when I then like give it to somebody to dispose of. Testosterone goes back in its little box. You don't have to keep it in the box. I like to. Yeah. And then from here, it's pretty straightforward. I just put my testosterone back in my kit, where next time I'll be swapping to my 1 milliliter syringes. Zipper up. This goes back in my drawer, and then everything else just goes in the trash. So basically just the wrappers, Band-Aids, etc. Definitely a longer video, but if you're someone who's doing a URT shot subq, hopefully this helps you. Thanks for joining me on my tea journey. And as of that shot, I am now 8 weeks on tea. See you kids on the flip side.